Okay, good morning everyone. Welcome to Montreal. I think most of you know that I am Keith Mitchell, OARC President. I'd like just to introduce you to our Chairman, Andre Philip, who wishes to make a few opening remarks, and then we'll get down to AGM business.
Yeah, good morning to everybody. I just wanted also on behalf of the board and DNS OARC to welcome you here in Montreal. We are going to have, I hope, another successful meeting. I think it's quite visible that we continue our journey to what we set a goal, ideal DNS OARC. We are not there yet, but I think the membership is growing. We have again the maximum number of members in the history, and I wanted to thank you guys for that. It's definitely visible that the idea of having such an organization is viable and that you are interested in our work, so thank you for that. I also wanted to thank you that for those who fill the questionnaire we sent. I would wish to see more numbers of participants in that, so that's one of my plea I wanted to tell you. We need to increase the interaction between the OARC people and you as the members. So if you have anything you would like to say to us, please contact either Keith, me, or the other board members. I think Keith is going to introduce the board members, right? So you will see them. And maybe the last thing, I think at the beginning I have to thank the sponsors who help us to make this happen. That's Nominum as a bronze sponsor, and Syrah as a gold sponsor, and also sponsor of the social tonight, which I'm sure is going to be fantastic. So let me thank them. And that's all from my side. Again, thank you for coming, and I would like to pass the microphone to Keith, who will tell you something about what's new at OARC and what numbers we have and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andre. So before we do the formal AGM business, I just have a few announcements that I'd like to make from an administrative point of view. We're using the network that has been installed for the NANOG and ARIN meetings. So again, I thank you to the NANOG team for helping us with the venue and also with coordinating the wireless. There's two versions of this. They both support 2.4 and 5 gigahertz. Obviously use the 5 gigahertz if you can. There is an authenticated one, 8021X authentication. Use the username and password nanog, all lowercase. If you have some interoperability issues with that, and I know I do, there's also a regular non-encrypted nanog ARIN legacy. Syrah, as part of their sponsorship, are also handing out shirts, so that will happen during the afternoon break. So please see Jake and team, and they'll be happy to give you some cool shirts for the event. Breaks, the coffee breaks. The coffee is being served in this room, and for the lunch breaks, we are up in the Hochelaga room, which is basically up 2 flights of stairs or escalators, and then it's on this side. The restrooms are halfway to there. You've got 1 flight of stairs or escalator, then the ladies is on the left and the gents, and also the coat check is on the right. In the event of a fire alarm or other emergency, then basically exit onto the street. And there's an assembly point either on this side of the building outside the church or outside McDonald's on the other side. For lunch, some of you have mentioned dietary requirements, so please just check with the servers that the food that you requested is available. We have a social event this evening, again sponsored by Syrah. It is at the venue, which is about 1.3 kilometers, so it's about 15-20 minutes walk, or there's options metro, bus, taxi, Uber, if that's too far for you. You'll need your name badge to get in, so don't forget your name badge. And when you get your name badge, then there's some tickets for drinks, and there's also some snacks available as well, and that's from 6 until 9. We're doing a PGP signing session. Maurizio has kindly volunteered to do that. That will be during the last hour of lunch tomorrow. Get your PGP keys to the address there, and that will be held in this room while everyone's having lunch upstairs. The badges, anyone with a red lanyard is either an OARC staff member or a board member or a program committee member, so if you need help, speak to them. First timers have a blue lanyard and a red badge, a red spot on their badge. So we have quite a lot of first timers. Please, the old timers, if you go out your way to welcome the first timers, welcome everyone for this, if this is your first OARC meeting. And I apologize that some of my slides that follow will repeat stuff that you've heard before if you're an old timer, but I think it's important to not take that for granted for our new members. When you're going, if you could please leave the lanyards and holders, that would be helpful. We're webcasting. Big thank you to Dave Knight, who's gone to considerable lengths to funk up our technology for this. It's via YouTube. We've got a live feed into that, so it's slightly different technology from last time. You can find it via the OARC Google Plus page. For people who are out on the webcast feeding back into the room, we're using the OARC Jabber server, so that's a Jabber server you want to be on. Most people are pretty good about these days, but while we're webcasting, if you can make sure that all your devices that may emanate beeping noises are set to silent or vibrate. If you've got questions, again, remember we're on the webcast. Please line up at the microphone stand in the middle there. Again, we have a camera to put you on the webcast, so please identify yourself and your affiliation before speaking. Dwayne, please line up at the microphone.
Can you just clarify, are we webcasting this AGM, the members-only meeting, or is this later?
The AGM proceedings are being webcast. Nobody has requested a member-only presentation, and we do not have any tweaky governance business this time round, so I decided in the interest of transparency that we may as well put the webcast out, the AGM. If we decide that we need to have an in-camera session, then we can do that.
No, I just wanted to make sure that...
Okay, yeah, thanks. Important to clarify. And we're on all the usual social media locations. The hashtag we're using is #OARC Workshop. I think nearly all the speakers have uploaded their slides, so thank you for doing that. If you didn't already, please speak to me, or if you have any special AV requirements. We're going to be remote controlling the presenter laptop here, so you should just need to use the clicker. Please keep to your time slot. We have timekeeper. One or more of our volunteers have the time cards, so they will help keep you on time. Your time slots include question and answers, so the countdown is to the end of your speaking, allowing 10 minutes or so for questions at the end. And if you're up here, either please don't take your radio transmitting devices or put them to airplane mode, so that they're not going to interfere with the wireless mics. And thank you to our speakers. You know, you all come here on your own time and expenses, and we wouldn't have a workshop without you, so thank you for that. Okay, so every OARC workshop, I give you all a State of the Nation address, where we're at. So really, this is just a recap of OARC status and progress, partly since my last quarterly written report, and partly since the last workshop in Amsterdam. So the board did a slight tweak to the mission statement back in March, but really the mission remains the same. It is about making sure that research, coordination, understanding of the DNS operations happens, and that we have a community in which we can do that, an environment and tools to support that, and to make sure that people understand why the DNS is important, and particularly in terms of protecting the Internet's infrastructure. How do we do that? We facilitate community coordination via various resources. We do data gathering from our members and other contributors, and we archive and collate that data and make it available. Various information sharing resources. There are various DNS software tools that we maintain and host. And then we do outreach by participating in external meetings, and also running workshops and shared meetings with other Internet operations bodies. Our governance, independent legal entity, we have a very diverse member base, and we're managing to improve on that. We're currently doing about $700,000 a year annual revenue to support the organisation, which is very close to our expense level. So we're financially self-supporting. The board is elected by you, your members. We have a board election later on this morning. There are a number of staff who are contracted. All 5 of us are here. If the OARC staff in the room could stand up, please. Okay, and Sue and Dinesh are outside on the registration desk. That's Delaney and William. And the programme committee have done some great work lately. They're all volunteers. They're appointed by the board each year. If you're interested in serving in the programme committee next year, please let one of the board members know so that we can consider you. I think the existing programme committee is doing great. And we're a non-profit. We're registered in the US and we have official non-profit public benefit status. So that's the governance vegetables. Here is an impression of our member base. You should be up there. As you can see, it is a lot of really quite prestigious organizations. Since my last report 3 months ago, I'm pleased to say that we have a number of new members. Aaron have rejoined, which is great. The Beijing Internet Institute are a new member. Liberty Global, a large cable operator, a new member. Nick Feimster, a very reputable researcher at Princeton University, has joined. Synodon are one of our new blue members. And I'm pleased to say that TELUS, local Canadian provider, has also become a bronze member. So we've also had a lot of members upgrade this year. So thank you if you upgraded your member status. CADA, Estonian Internet, Nick.AR, Team Kumri and White have all converted from the legacy beneficial status to the new supporter status. .UA have converted from beneficial to blue status. And then we've had a number of beneficial members who've upgraded to paying bronze status, Farsight, PIR, Power DNS, and Secure64. I understand Power DNS are running a remote participation party in the Netherlands for this weekend's workshop. So what have we managed to do this year? We got our new project development manager, Delaney, on board, who's been busy sourcing out new opportunities to expand OARC's services and projects. William has been busy increasing our storage capacity. So we have a whole lot of new storage capacity, and one of the more important things is it's newer high-density technology, so it's taking up less space and power. Biggest to deliver, 9 terabytes of data we gathered back in April. So that's our day in the life of the Internet project. Thank you to everyone that contributed. There's some really quite interesting data, and we will, of course, be doing it again next year and possibly sooner. We're doing a new thing, which is the RSAC 002 data that the route operators are publishing. Excuse me. All the route operators make this available in the public domain. What we're doing is we're basically pulling all of that into one place and making that a common long-term archive. And that's something that we feel is very much part of OARC's mission and we'll be continuing to do. We're doing well on growing the subscription revenue. You know, I mentioned all the new members and upgraded members. Sue has been busy working on that, so that makes us a more sustainable organization. And the great thing about subscription revenue is it is recurring if we look after you, and that's really good for the organization's stability in future. We've also been cleaning up all the old non-paying members, not just beneficial, but there's some other categories in there. Say a little bit more about that in a minute. I mentioned that we did a board retreat. Mostly that was to review progress against the strategic development plan that we did in 2013. We've also started charging for the registration of non-members, which seems to be working reasonably well. We still make a slight loss on each workshop. It'd be great to have one more sponsor each time. But the workshop registration seems to be working, and it's certainly helping. Our board members, there are 6 of these. They are James and George send their apologies, but John, Andre, Dave, and Dwayne are all in the room. We have board elections for 3 of these positions shortly. Program committee, Sebastian has been doing sterling work chairing all of that. And then we have a diverse selection of members. I hope that most of them will stay on to next year, but as I say, if you're interested in serving, we'd love to hear from you. I mentioned the staff. We don't all work full-time. Some of us work part-time for OARC and other organizations. We do not at the moment have payroll. It's all contracted, which gives us a lot of flexibility because we're globally distributed. Maybe someday we'll get to the point where we can actually have payroll and employees, but this flexible arrangement is working for now. We'd really like to hire a software engineer. We posted the vacancy. We're still trying to secure funding for that. So I hope that we will be able to add somebody who can do software development for our tools and also more analysis work as well. At the moment, we contract a number of services from ISC. Mostly that's finance, admin, bookkeeping services. We also host our infrastructure at ISC. We've been told by ISC that we've only got a few months to go before they cease doing that for anybody. So that's going to be our interesting challenge. William will have more to say about the infrastructure than I have. What have we been working on? We've made some updates to our creaking ancient member portal so that it's a bit more usable. Our core network is fully 10 gig capable. We need to find somewhere else. At the moment, we have 3 racks of equipment at ISC. We can almost certainly reduce that to probably 2 or maybe less, depending on exactly how we do it. We're assembling a plan. We've been working on, we needed to diversify our infrastructure beyond Earthquake County anyway. That's something that we had in hand. This is clearly an opportunity for us to diversify our locations. But there are also some issues there about jurisdiction and concerns about privacy. So there's also an opportunity to diversify from a legal point of view. We will need your help. We've already had offers of space from several members, so that's great. And obviously what we need to do is do that in a planned and neutral manner rather than piecemeal. So you'll be hearing more about that for us. One of the things that we've been doing in conjunction with Jacques Latour, who runs the SACR community within CCNSO, ICANN, is running a security contacts mailing list. So that's going quite well. We also did some experiments with a trust platform, trying to make us independent of a third party that we rely on for that. But their code, their first attempt at releasing their code into the public domain didn't quite work out. Our contribution was to figure that out for them. But we're told there's a better code base in the near future, so I hope that we can have another go at that. Anyway, William will be talking shortly in a little bit more detail about the state of our infrastructure. I want to say a little bit about workshops. Nearly 3 years ago, we did a survey. We wanted to make sure that we were having the workshops in locations that were convenient and easy for you to attend, and also that we're making good use of your time. The outcome of that survey was very clear. You wanted 2 workshops a year. You wanted them to 1.5 to 2 days long, and you didn't want them standalone. You wanted them co-located with other internet meetings, in particular these 4 big ones. We also just wanted to get your feedback and check on sanity check the charging policy is working. We tried really hard to get responses from you, but it just seemed to be a long, slow summer, and we only got 17 responses. So thank you, those of you who gave us feedback. I hope those of you who didn't give us feedback are happy with how things are, but I'm going to ask you some questions again. The good news is it seems to verify the data that we got, that we're doing things right. Most people want workshops to be 2 a year. They want them to be 2 days long. And majority basically saying, is charging okay? Well, it's okay if you're a non-member. And even some almost as many members said, most of the responses were from members, almost as many members said they were okay to pay. And really nobody said no. Some said maybe, which kind of depends. Also, we're charging at the moment $150 for non-members, and then $100 late fee for everybody less than 2 weeks into before the meeting, and that seems to be in the right ballpark. We might decide to increase that slightly on the basis of this survey, but we're mostly covering our costs, and obviously we don't want to create barriers. And your paying members includes membership. You can send as many representatives to the workshop free as you have in your membership category. Just don't register at the last minute, because that causes us costs, it causes you costs. I hope that with a 4-month lead time that you can register. We'd rather you registered early and told us than registered late and we have to take money from you. On the question of meeting co-location, again, there's a strong preference that meetings should be co-located as opposed to standalone. Again, what are the meetings that are most popular? It's RIPE, NANOG, IETF, ICANN meetings with a strong preference for RIPE, and then IETF next. One slight mistake that we made in the survey is we didn't ask about center meetings. The other block at the bottom is actually entirely center. So that's a useful data point. Does it make it easy to figure out where our meeting in a year's time? It's going to be not so much. There were some ideas that might be nice to go to the Asia-Pacific region, but I think maybe Dhaka was not some people's choice in that region. And we've got an almost exact tie break between the ICANN meeting that's going to be in Puerto Rico and the NANOG meeting in a year with Dallas. We're very happy to work with both ICANN and NANOG. There was also a fairly strong suggestion for standalone, which is a little bit inconsistent with the previous result, which said you preferred them to be co-located. We can certainly do a standalone meeting. It's a while since we've done that. Most of the others at the bottom were for IETF meetings later into 2017, but we're co-locating with IETF for the first time in spring, so obviously we don't want to do that twice next year. So could I just do a quick, since we've got more than 17 people in the room, could I just ask for a quick show of hands on the sort of 3 most popular options? So who would like to go to Puerto Rico and co-locate with the ICANN meeting? Oops. Okay, so that's about 21. And who would like to co-locate with NANOG in Dallas? Yeah, that's about 21 as well. Okay, and who thinks it would be fun to do a standalone meeting? Okay, not so many. So obviously there's some bias in the survey there. Okay, well, NANOG are very happy to work with us. ICANN, generally we get, co-locating with ICANN meetings is good because we get extra people from the community that we don't normally deal with. So we need to balance these. Also, we're going to South America for the first time in spring, so I'm not sure whether that means we want to go to Central America immediately afterwards, but ultimately it's the board's decision. We want you to know well in advance when and where the meetings are, so the board will deliberate and we'll come up with an answer to that very shortly. Thank you all for your feedback on that. So here's the options. As I say, we're co-locating the IETF for the first time in Buenos Aires in Argentina. Nick.AR giving us help with that, so that will be awesome. We're looking for sponsors. Fall 2016 we've talked about. Spring 2017, again, RIPE is very popular, and RIPE are always happy to have us, and it usually works well. We don't quite know where RIPE 74 is going to be in 18 months' time, but that is pretty much the plan. And then in 2 years' time, we'd like to come back to NANOG and in North America again. So, OARC development. I mentioned the OARC development plan. This isn't just about making the organization stand still in a steady state. We want to take the organization forward. The development plan is now 2.5 years old. We're 2.5 years into what was a 3 to 5 year development program, so we're well past halfway. We did a board review of that in the spring. The board's conclusion was that there's still work to be done. There was also identified we need to make more progress in revenue growth. I believe that we've done that. We're still a bit short on budget in terms of revenue growth, mostly because we haven't nailed down project funding, but the organic revenue growth is going well. The board decided that 2 years into the 3-year plan, we were on track. As I mentioned, project funding is still elusive, and we wanted to, there was a big funding opportunity that we were approached about. Unfortunately, that went to RFP. We put our bid in. We've been told that that bid was unsuccessful. So I'm afraid that we put quite a lot of effort into that. Going for a big one, we haven't succeeded, so we need to reset and potentially go for several smaller projects there. The good news is that the development plan involved quite a lot of governance changes. It's done. We really don't need to tinker with the governance at the moment. So I think we're in pretty good shape in terms of structure and governance. One of these changes was to tinker with the membership categories. We got rid of all the old non-paying categories and also beneficial membership status, so it's all supporter now. We are monitoring much more formally. If you're a supporter, we expect something from you. We expect you to give us data on a regular basis, or to do research and publish that research and give OARC acknowledgement, or potentially give us services in kind. But at the time of application, the board is insisting that we have that information. We're tracking it. After a year, we go back and verify that. So that's a lot more formal than it used to be. As I mentioned, Sue's been doing the work to get all the beneficial members. Nearly all of them are supporter or blue. There's only 3 or 4 left. All non-paying participants will be migrated by the end of 2015. If you're not paying and you're not in supporter status, by the end of 2015, that will be removed. So if you're in that, please contact Sue. She even has some blank agreements for you to sign while you're here. Please do. We don't want to lose you, and we'd like to clean all this up. I mentioned the new membership categories. New membership, entry-level paying member category blue. You need to be below a certain size. Maybe you're a private individual, but the important thing is you do not have more than 10 employees or a maximum of 1 million revenue per year. And that could be, for example, a research group within an institution that doesn't, if you're a PI within an institution and you have a handful of research assistants or postdocs working for you, we're not going to count your entire computer science department or your entire university in that. There is some discretion there. And that's only $1,000 a year subscription. So, maybe you're a consultant in the industry. We'd love to have you. We also upped the platinum threshold from 12,500 to 20,000. And VeriSign were kind enough to fund us at a level which meant that we had to introduce a new category. So I hope that at least one of you will be able to join VeriSign's in Diamond category. One thing that we introduced last year is that we split the participation agreement into the participation agreement, which was about sharing information, which could be intelligence or outages or things going on, versus sharing data, which is specifically gathered. That was a version 1.0. When we've run that past various prospective members, we've identified some bugs and inconsistencies, so we're working on fixing that. And it's mostly about if you're a researcher, what your obligations about using and publishing OARC data are, about notifying us and us notifying you, sanctions for breach of the data sharing agreement, and also whether information is confidential by default or non-confidential by default. So expect a new version of that probably before the end of the year. One of the key things that I've been fighting in the 10 years that I've been involved with OARC now is that most of the successful internet infrastructure and non-profits that I've been involved in, you need a certain minimum number of staff to be an autonomous, neutral organization. We're doing well, but we're not quite there. If you add up all the fractional employees contractors that we have, it's about 3.3. We need really 4 or 5. We're not going to get to 4 or 5 FTEs until we get more income. We're steadily growing, maybe about 20% a year organic growth. But we really need to up things and do project and grant funding. That's what Delaney's been working on, and we hope that with that we'll be able to fund a full-time software and analysis engineer. This is the goal that the board set us 2.5 years ago, about $1 million a year split between running costs and staff costs, and what we ideally want in terms of staff. So just going back to the retreat, there were a number of conclusions that the board made. We need to articulate what it is that OARC's value proposition is. We unfortunately lost a couple of members as a result of cleaning house because they just didn't quite get it. We need to articulate that better. I'm going to share the results of that with you in a second. Workshops are going well. We really need to figure out DSC. We did a survey about DSC. The response was, one, nobody seemed to care much, and two, what is DSC? So we need to work on that. Delaney was saying a little bit more about that. It's getting harder to gather data. People are concerned about privacy, contributions, geodiversity, the friendliness of the tools. We need, if we're going to continue gathering data, we need to do some work on that. And we also need to figure out what are our priorities. There's a lot of legacy projects kicking around. Which ones do we keep? Which ones do we up to the next level? So, value proposition. How do you explain, what is the elevator pitch? How do you explain to a layman what it is that OARC does? We kicked a few ideas around, and we think we're kind of a library. We have all this huge data that we're trying to index in perpetuity. We're neutral. We want to make it accessible and welcoming to all, whether you're a researcher or an operator. There are some facilities. Those who support us as members, there are things that we do for you which are extra, and you know, we're not going to go shh at you if you want to talk about stuff. We have some interesting archives and some tools, and we have a Friends of the Library program. And this is where you get to go to the workshops and catch up on the latest industry news and what's going on. We thought of another slightly different version of this, which is, are we a library, or are we maybe like a learned society, perhaps like National Geographic or the British Association? But that's how we're trying to explain it. We'd be interested in your feedback on, is this a good way of justifying what OARC is to your organization and your business objectives? So, finances. Dwayne, as treasurer, will be giving you a formal report, but I want to just give you an overview of where we're at. We had the 2014 audit, as usual, clean bill of health. So we're, as usual, seeking formal approval of the accounts from the AGM. We finished 2014 with a small surplus, which is good non-profit business, not a huge surplus, but a small one. As part of the strategic development ban, the board made the decision that we could use some of our reserves to fund growth investment of the organization. So we're projecting a small deficit for 2015. To give you a view of that, these figures, the 2015 year-to-date figures are for end of September, so that's 3 quarters of the year, 9 months into the year. There were some fairly ambitious targets set for 2015. We're not going to hit them in terms of income, but we're not going to hit them in terms of expenses either. So I keep a pretty close eye on that. And you can see that we're in a stable and strong cash position. So yeah, the reality for the end of the year will be somewhere between the YTD and the budget figure. Where does our income come from? Mostly member fees. Thank you for that. Sometimes we get donations, and nothing so much this year. Increasingly, we're getting money from workshop sponsorship and registration fees. A little bit of project funding, but we certainly want to, we want to increase the workshop funding a little bit, but the project funding we want to do a lot of work on, and certainly donations would be good too. In terms of expenditure, most of our expenditure is on the time of the contracted staff members. Capital equipment for this kind of thing is a lot cheaper than it used to be. Big data is much cheaper. It used to be a much bigger part of OARC's budget. Co-location, well, that's going to have to increase for next year. We didn't expand it to the extent that we thought we would this year in terms of diversification. We're going to need to spend more next year. And you can see that the workshops are almost break even. We generally make maybe about a 3 to 5K loss on each workshop. And then there are other things. The biggest part of the other is travel for stitching the team together and participating in workshops. But again, you can see that we'll make a slight loss for this year. That is the end of my report. I'd be happy to take any questions from anybody or any discussion points, particularly for feedback on some of the questions that I raised in my presentation. If anyone would like to ask any questions, then please join the mic, or feel free to speak to me or any of the staff or board members today or tomorrow. Are we good? No questions? Okay. So the next part of the agenda is Dwayne's Treasurer report.
I think we're ready. Okay, so this is kind of repetitive from what Keith just said, but since I am your treasurer, I get to stand up here and show some slides. If I can figure this thing out. Nope, that wasn't the right button. Oh, it's the arrow buttons? Okay. So one of the things I want to tell you about is every year we have a financial audit, and we have the results from the 2004 financial audit, 2014 financial audit. Here are some comments from the auditor. The books and records are in excellent shape. We have a well-designed internal control system with various checks and balances. They found 6 journal entries that needed adjustment and state that it's normal for an organization to have about 6 to 8 per year. So we thought that was very good. Here are some of the recommendations from the 2014 audit report. They wanted to make sure that a board member makes the approvals for wire payments to the president, rather than, I think there were some instances that year where the president had to approve his own payments just because they weren't getting done otherwise, and so he needed to get paid, and so he approved his own. And we also had a little bit of difficulties with the banking website access and whatnot, but those have all been sorted out. There's 2 of us besides the president now that have authority to go into the banking system and approve those payments. We have sort of enough cash in the bank where it may be time to consider moving some of that into a different account that pays a little bit of interest, even though interest rates are, still pretty bad. It's probably better than just having it sit in a non-interest-bearing account. That has not been done yet, but that is still on our to-do list. And we also have enough in savings that we are sort of just over some of the limits for the FDIC insurance that you get from a bank. And there are some easy ways to fix that, including putting them into separate types of accounts, or maybe even putting them to these interest-bearing accounts would also solve that. This slide shows the 2014 profit and loss, and again, this is just what kind of Keith showed you. As far as the expenses, the biggest expense is staff expense, and that includes both the OARC staff and sort of third-party people that help us out from time to time, lawyers and whatnot. The total income for 2014 was almost $550,000. I'm sorry, the expenses, $550,000. The income was $450,000, excuse me, and the income was $465,000. Net income for the year was $15,000. Here are the numbers for 2015 as of the end of September. You'll see a new item on the income table, which is the meeting registration. And as Keith said, that is for registrants who are not OARC members to pay their registration fees to attend these meetings. Year to date on the profit and loss, so far we are down $50,000, but that's with a very large accounts receivable as of the end of the last month, because we have a lot of members that sign up around this time of the year, around the time of the meetings. So a lot of you or not a lot, but some of you may have payments that are due to OARC still at this time, and those are accounts receivable. And of course, by the end of the year, we expect all those to be received and to balance out. So that's it as far as the Treasury report, but I'm happy to take any questions if you have some. All right. Keith, back to you. We have dead air.
Okay, so at this point, what we need to do is, if there are no questions on the audited accounts, is to formally approve them. Just for the avoidance of confusion, the way that we run the votes is that we will, those of you who have a voting card, we will ask for votes in favour, we will ask for votes against, we will then ask for abstentions and make sure that it all totals up. Could you please, and hold up as high as you can because it's a little bit dim in here, those in favour of approving the audited accounts for 2014? Okay, we got everybody right. Okay, I count 29, and Sue, how many proxies in favour do we have? I'm sorry? How, so that was 29. I think we're seeing 30. So two proxies and, oh, no, right, don't hold your card up at the moment. I'm asking Sue how many proxies we had in favour. 2. Okay, so that's 29 in favour plus 2 proxies is 31. Okay, can we have a show of voting cards for those against approving the accounts? Awesome. And do we have any abstentions? Okay, no abstentions. Okay, thank you. The next item of business is to approve the minutes of the previous AGM, which have been posted on the AGM website for the past couple of weeks. Again, does anyone have any questions or amendments or corrections on these minutes? Okay, again, if we could have a show of voting cards in favour of approving these minutes, please. Okay, right, we got some latency in holding the voting cards up last time, so, okay. That's 29 again, and two proxies in favour. Okay, so that's 31. Okay, 30.
The very last man close to them.
Okay, sorry, yeah, Andre spotted somebody that I didn't, so we've got 30 in both, so thank you. Okay, so the next item of business is to conduct the elections. I believe that all of you, so if you haven't already handed your voting paper into Sue, please do that during the break, and then we will count the votes. With the 4 candidates for the election, we're not going to do hustings, but if you could please stand up, identify yourselves. So we have the 3 existing board members, Dave Knight, Dwayne Wessels, and Jim Galvin, who is unfortunately unable to attend, and we have a new candidate, Paul Eversman, who's been serving on the programme committee. You know, if you've got any questions to ask them, then again, please speak to them during the break. I believe that we are now good to break for 30 minutes. Yeah, we're running slightly ahead, so this is good. So we will we'll break for 30 minutes and resume at 11:15. As I say, make sure that your voting papers are handed in. Okay, thank you all.